Ku Huai when he broke our engagement for the sake of a pure-hearted college girl. I accepted it. Everyone in the Beijing circle laughed at me. The Ku family's long-nurtured future daughter-in-law had actually been pushed aside by an ordinary person. They didn't know that to wreck a great ship, you only need to steer it into the wrong channel. Freed from the bonds of our engagement, I could finally take over Ku Corporation without hesitation. Oh, and I should thank that college girl if she hadn't messed things up by getting jealous and ruining the anklet, and with the cooperation of all the female CEOs, that ship wouldn't have sunk so quickly. 2 years later, when I walked into Ku Group wearing haute couture, the astonishment and nostalgia in Ku Huai's eyes were genuine. He smiled until his legs ached. You win. After all the twists and turns, you proved to me that you're still the one who suits me best. Let's get married. My fingertip tapped, signing the acquisition contract. I smiled lightly. Sorry, I'm not interested in stealing men, I'm interested in stealing men's jobs. Ku Huai took that girl's hand and appeared at our engagement banquet. His voice carried clearly through the microphone to every corner of the hall. Everyone, today I have an announcement to make. My engagement with Shen Haiyan ends here. At those words, the hall erupted. I stood opposite her, only separated by 3 tiers of champagne glasses. Life blurred into a mess. I couldn't hear anything clearly except the tiny popping of bubbles in the glass, painfully sharp, each one hitting my chest with a dull thud. Ku Huai didn't look at me. All his attention was on the girl at his side. I knew that girl. Her name was Lin Yuyu. The report the secretary submitted a week ago mentioned that he was one of the impoverished mountain students whom Ku Huai sponsored in his personal capacity. In the photo he wore a school uniform washed to paleness, his eyes clear, bearing an innocence untouched by the world. I only glanced at it then and fed it into the shredder, a person of no consequence. Now he had changed into a simple white dress, still looking the same, timidly hiding behind Ku Huai as if all the world's glamour had nothing to do with him. He was a fawn who had wandered into the marketplace of fame and fortune. Ku Huai squeezed her hand as if to give him endless strength. He finally turned his gaze to me and called my full name, Shen Haiyan. I'm tired of the commercial aura you always calculate with precision. Tired of every conversation between us feeling like a business negotiation. Only with you do I feel alive, feel pure. I said nothing, amid hundreds of gazes mixed with pity, ridicule, and voyeuristic interest. I simply removed the engagement ring from my ring finger and gently placed it on the table covered with a white tablecloth. Then I lifted my glass and gestured toward them. Ku Huai, Miss Lin, I wish you both well. With that I drank the champagne in my glass and turned to leave. My composure evidently exceeded Ku Huai's expectations. He might have envisioned I would become hysterical, question him, break down. Only then could he fulfill his melodramatic script of pursuing true love and breaking free from shackles. My brisk exit made him look like a clown directing and acting in his own play. Shen Haiyan, stop, he shouted angrily. What game are you trying to play now? I warn you, don't think that your indifferent act will make me believe you won't move a muscle. Yoyo's hair, his voice was taut, as if I were already a madwoman prepared to exact vicious revenge. Lin Yuyu behind him promptly adopted an even more fragile, helpless expression, her eyes reddening as she clutched the hem at her ankle, as if I were some monstrous threat. I didn't move my feet. I only lowered my eyes to glance at my empty ring finger and tugged the corner of my mouth. Rest assured, matters that do not concern me never trouble me. On the way home, my mother's face was as ugly as could be. Useless thing, I taught you for more than 20 years to make you the perfect heir wife. Is this how you repay me? Unable even to keep a man, he suddenly raised his voice. In his anger his tone distorted. Some wild girl who appeared out of nowhere defeated you. You have utterly disgraced the Shen family today. I leaned against the car window, watching the rapidly receding streets, neon lights flickering across my face. I didn't argue because in his eyes I had never been his daughter, only an investment he had poured half his life into. While other children rolled on the grass, I was locked in the music room, playing a piece 100 times. My small fingers rubbed raw, the blisters burst and scabbed over, then were rubbed open again. When my mother came to see me, she never asked if my hands hurt. She only asked the teacher where my progress ranked among children my age. She stood behind me holding a ruler. If I played a single wrong note, that wooden ruler would fall mercilessly on the back of my hand. He said, Shen Hanyang, you must remember, every step you take must be flawless. Your value is reflected in these details. He never cared whether I liked it or was tired. He only cared about my report cards, my competition standings, and whether I behaved appropriately in social settings, whether I could bring honor to the Shun family. To shape the most graceful posture in me, he not only went so far as to hire the most exacting ballet teacher in the field to watch me without leaving my side, but even my daily diet to maintain my figure was precisely quantified so that not a half moment could go awry. During puberty, I once secretly ate a piece of chocolate because I craved it. When he found out, he punished me by making me stand in pointe shoes in front of a mirror for an entire night. That night he sat across from me on the sofa. There was no pity in his eyes, only an inspector's scrutiny. He demanded I be fluent in 4 languages, not merely for communication, but so that in future social situations in any international setting I could respond with ease and be my husband's most capable pillar. She had me study finance, business management, even psychology so I could read people and financial statements, to grip tightly both my husband's heart and money, piano, chess, calligraphy, painting, tea ceremony, floral art, equestrianism, golf, everything celebrated by high society I had to do at the highest level. I kept a constant smile, moved with grace, spoke appropriately. I could not display the willfulness or temper of an ordinary girl. Because a commodity is not allowed to have flaws, I became the other family's child spoken of by others, the model for all socialites. The marriage alliance with the Koo family was his proudest deal. The Koo family was truly a top-tier aristocratic house. This marriage could catapult the Shun family to become a new elite in their circle. To that end, he began preparing 3 years in advance, studying Koo's preferences, having me learn the painting styles he liked, acquaint myself with the classical music he favored, even imitate the Koo family maid's cooking. I did so well that the Koo parents praised me endlessly, deeming me the unrivaled choice for the future mistress of the Koo household. Everyone envied him. They said he, called Fang, had raised an impeccable socialite. Those compliments were once his proudest medals, but now those medals, along with his pride, were ripped to shreds publicly by the Koo family. What were you thinking at the time? The car stopped at a red light. My mother asked me in front of so many people, Koo, why humiliated you? Humiliated our Shun family. Why didn't you cry or make a scene? If you had shown even a little bit of grievance or reluctance, public opinion would have sided with you. He has status to protect. Even if he wanted to shield that little temptress, he would have to think twice. His tone was full of exasperated disappointment, as if he hated that steel couldn't be made from iron. And you, one blessing and you turn and walk away. Are you trying to show magnanimity? Shun Hanyang, those tactics I taught you, you've learned them into a dog's belly. Your composure and dignity are worthless at a time like this. I watched the well-maintained face tense with muscles from agitation. What angered him wasn't that my fiancé abandoned me, wasn't that my feelings were hurt. He was angry that I didn't immediately and in the most effective way try to salvage the loss and manage the crisis. I answered calmly, Mom, that would look bad, really bad. She seemed to hear the world's biggest joke. How much is face worth compared with the Koo family marriage? A momentary loss of face is nothing. As long as it would make her change her mind or ruin his reputation, you could kneel and beg him. I taught you too well, so well you're perfect like a mannequin, without any human warmth. Men say they like sensible women, but in their hearts they prefer those who cry, make a scene and act coquettishly. Look at that Lin, she clearly knows how to show weakness. A few tears and Koo Hui softens. You're like a stone, cold and hard. His words are like a dull knife cutting at my nerves again and again. To meet his ideal I suppressed every instinct, smoothed every edge, and became the person he wanted. In the end that became my original sin of failure. It turns out the saddest thing about a product isn't a flaw, but being so perfect you lose your soul and become boring to the buyer. The car slowly drove into the gate of the Shun family villa. The driver opened the door. My mother got out first, her high heels crunching on the gravel with a crisp, impatient sound. I followed behind him, looking at his decisive back, and suddenly spoke. Mom. His steps faltered, but he didn't turn around. If I weren't your daughter, just an ordinary girl, would you pity me if something like this happened today? The air was quiet for a few seconds before he finally turned his face. The streetlight outlined his cold, hard jawline. Shun Hanyang, stop with that useless self-pity. There are no IFS in this world. Having said that, he walked into the brightly lit house without another glance. I stood where I was. The bone-piercing night wind swept over me, carrying fine flakes of snow that stung my cheeks. I pulled at the thick cashmere coat I was wearing, 6 figures at retail. The saleswoman said it was the top cold-resistant model, able to withstand temperatures well below -10, but I tightened the collar and still felt cold, the chill running from my fingertips down into the seams of my bones, as if even my blood would freeze. The farce of the engagement banquet became the city's headline. When the stock market opened, Shun Group's shares fell in response, erasing nearly 100 million in market value within half an hour. Rumors of the Koo family's intent to withdraw investment spread loudly through various channels. Like a virus, it circulated in our circles. Every business partner's call grew cautious and distant. Overnight, Shun Jiao went from a prospective lead in a powerful alliance to the joke of high society. In the living room, my father, Shun Zhenhua, sat leisurely in the main seat sipping tea. Beside him sat a young man whose features bore some resemblance to his, though darker in expression. That was my father's illegitimate son, Shun Yi. Kept elsewhere, my mother, who had just finished a full day of shareholders' meetings, still wore immaculate makeup, save for the bluish-black circles under her eyes that betrayed undeniable fatigue. She looked at the young man with an icy gaze. Shun Zhenhua, what do you mean? My father set down his teacup, his voice calm and even. What's wrong with my son coming home for a meal? Xiao Yi, go say hello to your sister. Shun Yi rose awkwardly, his eyes sweeping past my mother's face before finally landing on me as he mumbled my name. My mother snorted coldly and ignored him, staring at my father. You're finally not pretending. Pretending, he replied. My dad wiped his hands with a napkin. Li Wenyan, if your father hadn't forced me back then, do you think you could have taken Madam Shun's place? I've put up with you for over 20 years, that's enough. Now your daughter has ruined the alliance with the Koo family and caused Shun Jiaqing to ridicule the company's plunging stock price. Can your position in the company still hold? His words were like knives, aimed precisely at my mother's most painful spot. After my grandfather died, my mother's family had already declined. Much of his power in the Shun Group depended on the marriage between me and the Koo family. Now that most important pillar is broken, that directly shakes his position in the company and gives my dad a perfect opportunity to openly bring his 18-year-old illegitimate son into the family. My mother's expression turned completely grim. Shun Zhenhua, you're taking advantage of the situation. I'm only thinking of the company. My dad shrugged nonchalantly. Han Yang, this mess has to have someone to bear the consequences. He casually shifted all the blame onto me, as if I weren't his daughter but a failed instrument in my mother's hands. She went on. Starting tomorrow, Xiao Yi will join the company, beginning as a project department manager. Help him along, that's his ultimate goal, using my failure to pave the way for his illegitimate son. My mother trembled with rage, pointing at Shun Yi. If you want him in the company, don't even think about it. I've already discussed this with several board members. Your opposition is invalid. My mother's face went deathly pale. He knew his days were numbered. The air in the dining room froze. The servants kept their heads down, breathing cautiously. I watched my father's smug face, my mother's barely restrained brink of collapse composure, and the hungry yearning in the eyes of the boy called Shun Yi. There was no place for me in this family. I had always known I was merely a tool my mother used to solidify her standing and a weapon my father used against her. Now that the tool no longer worked, the target had lost its purpose. I spoke up. Dad, give me the European luxury goods division. That department was a notorious hot potato in the Shun Group. Years of losses. On the verge of collapse, whoever took it on was unlucky. Several past heads had resigned in disgrace. It had become a tacit internal exile. My mother immediately objected. Nonsense, what are you going to do there? It's a bottomless pit. She probably thought I was giving up on myself. But my father became interested. He narrowed his eyes and studied me as if appraising the remaining value of an old object. Oh, you wanted to go, I answered frankly. Having you and the board handle domestic business is enough. If I go to Europe, I at least won't be an eyesore. I spoke plainly. My father laughed, a genuine, unreserved laugh from the heart. He hesitated hardly at all. Fine, the domestic business will be run as a separate account. The group won't give you another penny of investment. You'll bear your own profits and losses. This is no different from making me walk away with nothing, leaving a mess to fend for itself. My mother opened her mouth to say something, but my father stopped her with a look. It was decided. Let him go try his luck. It's better than staying home and bringing shame on us. That sentence utterly declared my worth. My father took Shun Yi upstairs to see the room prepared for him, eagerly introducing it. My mother sat dazed in her place. staring at the cold remains on the table. I stood up and walked up the stairs alone. I once thought that if I did well enough, I would be recognized, given a little love. Now I understand that I was wrong from the start, for a child who is not expected no matter how well they do, it's all in vain. From now on I will live for myself. Before I go to Europe, I have 1 month to hand over the domestic business. During that month, Ku Huai and Lin Yoyo's names dominated every media outlet. There were many versions of the story, but the core was the same. Ku Huai was the brave Prince Charming, Lin Yuyu the pure Cinderella, and I was the pitiful and hateful discarded woman of a wealthy family. I didn't care, public opinion was nothing to me, just wind that passes by, leaving no trace. The most urgent thing on hand was a project with the Ku Group that needed finishing. It was the one I had been responsible for, full of tangled data and personal connections that had to be handed over in person. I had my secretary arrange to meet Ku Huai at a cafe near the company. When the waiter came, I spoke automatically: an iced Americano, no sugar, no milk, and another cappuccino, extra sugar and plenty of cinnamon powder. Only after the words left my mouth did I realize the latter was Ku Huai's taste. Ku Huai, sitting across from me, leaned against the back of the sofa, arms crossed over his chest, studying me with a scrutinizing look. Shen Hanyang, why bother? I know you still have feelings for me, but it's impossible between us now. Your clinging, pestering behavior is truly undignified. He seemed to relish this condescending posture, enjoying the thrill of putting me beneath his feet, as if that would further prove he made the right choice. But this was only what my mother had once forced on me. In fright, she made me memorize all of Ku Huai's preferences down to the smallest detail, insisting I internalize them so I could attend to his moods and tastes at any time. Over time it became muscle memory, a conditioned reflex that didn't require thought. I wanted to explain, but I feared it would bring up too much, and I didn't have the time. After all, I had other things to do. At that moment a gentle young woman stepped in. Huai Lin Yuyu appeared as if on cue. She wore a simple cotton dress, her face unadorned, looking clean and innocent. He stopped in his tracks when he saw me sitting opposite Ku Huai. His eyes quickly reddened. He lightly tugged at Ku Huai's sleeve, his voice trembling with tears. Huai, am I interrupting you? Ku Huai turned and took Lin Yoyo's hand, pulling her into his arms and soothing her softly. Don't overthink it, I'm just clearing things up with him. After saying that, he lifted his head and his gaze toward me grew several degrees colder. Shen Hanyang, I hope you face reality. Yuyu is simple-minded and easily prone to wild thoughts. I don't want him to be hurt because of you. Let the past stay in the past. Stop these pointless struggles, they don't do either of us any good. Their one-man show played out loudly while I watched like an outsider. In that moment I finally understood the awkward fate of NPCs in boss-centric dramas, until a waiter brought coffee and broke the uncomfortable standoff. I pushed the cappuccino piled high with cinnamon powder across to him, then slid the handover documents for Xinghe Bei over as well. Mr. Ku, shall we begin? My voice was calm and flat, devoid of emotion. I had another meeting at 3 in the afternoon. The affectionate smile on her face froze. She eyed me suspiciously for a few seconds, and in the end picked up the documents. Lin Yuyu nestled against her side, stealing glances at me from time to time with startled fawn-like eyes, as if I were some man-eating monster. Luckily the handover went quickly. The files were well organized. I used different colored tags to mark all the key points and potential risks. He only needed to sign. Ku Huai flipped through faster and faster, his brows knitting ever tighter. This was not the composure of a heartbroken woman. The document was professional, calm, and airtight. After signing the last character, he closed the folder and set it heavily on the table. He seemed to want to say something but couldn't find the right words. I didn't give him a chance to form them. Pleasure doing business, Mr. Ku. I stood up and picked up my bag. From now on, regarding this project, please contact Assistant Deng directly. After they left, the cafe returned to quiet. I lifted the cup of iced Americano and had just taken a sip when a sharp voice sounded behind me. Shen Hanyang, I really didn't expect you could put up with so much. I turned to see Ju Qian, a wealthy heiress who used to cling to me every day and call me Sister Hanyang more affectionately than anyone. Now she had her arms folded, wearing a look of gleeful mockery. TSK, saying she had felt embarrassed for me at that moment and even specially ordered the coffee her friend likes. Is playing this kind of hot and cold game fun? Honestly, I don't think you need to do this. Men are like that. If they don't love you, They don't love you. The more you can't let go, the worse you look. Just look at how Mr. Ku was looking at you a moment ago. If I were you, I'd have dug a hole and crawled into it." Her words buzzed in my ear like flies, and I suddenly smiled at her. I picked up the cappuccino reserved for Ku Huai and handed it to him. "Do you like it?" I asked. Ju Qian was stunned, not understanding my meaning. I pushed the cup forward again, my smile unchanged. "This cup of coffee, along with Ku Huai himself, if you want them so much, I'll give them to you both. See if he will, like he did with me, give you the status of breaking free and pursuing true love." Ju Qian's face instantly flushed dark as liver. I withdrew my hand and set the cup steadily on the table, then turned and left. Ku Huai ostentatiously brought Lin Yuyu into high society. Lin Yuyu was the complete opposite of me. The rules I had spent more than 20 years learning left no trace on her. Ku Huai took him to a private riding ground. Lin Yuyu wore an ill-fitting suit and couldn't even get on the horse. Eventually Ku Huai held him and helped him onto the saddle. The two of them rode together, leaving a silhouette at sunset that countless people reposted. She took her to charity auctions. She couldn't understand the value of those artworks. In front of an antique vase priced at 8 million, she actually asked Ku Huai the day before yesterday, "This isn't as pretty as my grandmother's pickle jar. Why is it so expensive?" The hall fell silent. But Ku Huai smiled. He bought that vase on the spot and in front of everyone handed it to Lin Yuyu, saying, "You're right, he only deserves to be your pickle jar." The next day Jinghao Ku Huai spent millions to win a beauty smile, and Jinghao's entry shot to the top of the trending list. Lin Yuyu's awkwardness and poor timing were, to him, embarrassment, to onlookers a joke, but through Ku Huai's filter, it all became unrefined innocence and charm. People in the circle were discussing that Ku Huai was serious this time, that Lin Yuyu was truly fortunate, a wild girl who understood nothing yet was cradled in Ku Huai's palm. Some of those remarks were relayed to me obliquely. In a tone of sympathy they said, "Han Yang, you're just too perfect. Men still prefer someone with a touch of everyday life. Yes, you do everything too well, leaving men with no desire to protect you, which becomes a burden." I only nodded, indicating I was listening but that my time was precious. I buried myself in piles of documents, sorted handover lists, met with the legal team and made final preparations for my trip to Europe, each minute worth its weight in gold. The news that Ku Huai planned to hold an engagement banquet with Lin Yuyu was announced through the media. Their engagement party, compared to the traditional one Ku Huai and I had before, was lavish beyond measure. I thought this would have nothing to do with me, until Ku Huai called personally, "Shen Hanyang, I'm getting engaged to Yuyu. Congratulations." My reply was concise, betraying no emotion. There was a few seconds silence on the other end. He seemed dissatisfied with my reaction. "The engagement banquet, I hope you can come." I checked my planner. Next Saturday was my flight to Paris. "Sorry, I'm not available that day." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard him chuckle softly with a hint of mockery. "The same trick again, Shen Hanyang. Can't you be a little more honest? I know you're uncomfortable, but running away won't solve anything. Come like a grown-up and be polite to everyone. That will show the outside world we parted amicably and give Yuyu a name, so he won't be pointed at in the circle later." His tone was earnest, as if a merciful victor were comforting my unwillingness. "Your coming would mean you've let go. Otherwise people will only think you can't accept defeat and are protesting childishly by being absent." I leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window and watched the unceasing traffic below. They were like tiny points of light gathering into rivers, flowing toward their own destinations. "Ku Huai," I said calmly, "I'm simply unable to make my flight, this afternoon's flight," he repeated, the doubt in his voice almost spilling over. "You're now sidelined by your father. What core tasks do you still have that require a business trip? Stop sulking." He had completely fallen into his own logic. In the world he constructed, all my actions had to be related to him. I suddenly felt very tired. Explanation is one of the most useless things in the world, especially when the other side has already written the script for you. I checked my watch and reminded him, "Director Ku, if that's all, I have an international meeting to attend." He probably didn't expect me to adopt such a businesslike tone. He paused and his voice grew cold. "I'm not consulting you, I'm notifying you. You must come." I hung up immediately. Not long after, several long text messages came through from Ku Huai's number. Their content was vicious. "Shen Hanyang, Don't shamelessly refuse kindness. I know you hate me and hate you even more, but do you think hiding and not meeting will change anything? I've seen your little tricks many times, they're just to make me think you don't care so I'd feel guilty. I told you it's impossible. Sending you an invitation was giving you a dignified way out. I hoped you would come and sincerely bless us in front of everyone so people wouldn't whisper behind your back, and it would give him a title of sorts. Do you understand? It's good for you too, at least it lets you keep your last shred of face in the circle. I read the message and deleted it, because I simply didn't care about him. On the day of the engagement banquet, the whole city was watching. The Koo family had booked the most prestigious rooftop garden hotel in the city center, and the media's long lenses were ready. From daytime live streams and discussions of this once-in-a-century engagement flooded everyone's screens on social media. Almost everyone expected me to appear. They wanted to see if I would dress up and put on a fake smile or come in distraught and a mess. They even designed hundreds of entrance scenarios and revenge scripts for me, but unfortunately I disappointed them. At the same time, I was on a flight to Paris. When the plane landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport, it was morning there. When I turned on my phone, countless messages poured in and the screen kept vibrating. I ignored it and headed straight for the exit. My assistant was already waiting, took my luggage, handed me a hot coffee and the latest business report. President Shen, the materials for the European division are all here, and the apartment has been arranged near the company. Thank you for your hard work. I opened the report. The deficits were alarming, but that did not depress me, rather it gave me a sense of having control over the bottleneck. It wasn't until I finished the first batch of urgent emails late at night that I had time to open the unread messages. One was from one of the few people in Su Tong's circle who still stayed in touch with me. We weren't close friends, but we both appreciated each other's sense of proportion in handling matters. She sent a photo from the engagement. In it, Koo Hui was bowing his head to put a ring on Lin Yuyu. The flashes surrounded them, and it looked like a perfect fairy tale. Su Tong's message followed. You were right not to come. Koo Hui looked absent-minded throughout the event, and when toasting he smiled more painfully than he would cry, his eyes constantly darting toward the door. He must have thought you'd come and he could watch you devastated, but you simply didn't care about him at all. His little vanity wasn't satisfied. So of course he couldn't be happy looking at that photo. Koo Hui's profile was indeed tense, not a trace of joy. I certainly wouldn't foolishly imagine that he was down because of my absence. He was merely angry that his most important audience hadn't shown up. The carefully staged play he'd crafted to showcase his breaking free to pursue true love had lost its most crucial reaction. The scene became ridiculous and incomplete. Su Tong messaged me again saying, honestly, I still can't figure it out how well you two suited each other, a match made in heaven. How could it fall apart? He and Lin Yuyu being together, someone of that kind who can't be shown in public. Sooner or later there will be regret, won't there? I can't answer that. Perhaps when he realizes the passionate part of love has faded and only a mess remains, there will be a fleeting moment of remorse. But what does that have to do with me? I never regret, because Koo Hui and I are fundamentally different people. What he pursues is the emotional value packaged as true love. What I want is actual power I can hold in my hands. Our marriage agreement, to me, was the quickest shortcut my mother mapped out for me to obtain that power. Now that path is cut off. I'm merely choosing a harder road and starting over. The European luxury goods division I took over was less a department than a mess. The last funds on the books had been exhausted last month, and the remaining employees were simply waiting for the group to issue their final severance. The first thing I did was slash all unrealistic expansion plans and refocus the business on two core directions: providing unique private bespoke services for Europe's top clients, and discovering and incubating talented but resource-poor emerging designers. I mobilized everything my mother had cultivated in me over the past 20 years as a socialite, those arts appreciation skills she considered bargaining chips for marrying into a wealthy family, my multilingual abilities, my knowledge of European aristocratic lineages, and the network accumulated from countless tedious high society functions. At this moment, they became my sharpest weapons. I personally visited the heir of an ancient Italian textile family and secured the exclusive supply rights to top fabrics with a cooperation model he couldn't refuse. I then flew to Paris and met the venerable Mrs. Levi, spending an entire afternoon drinking tea with her favorite Impressionist paintings when she was worrying over her granddaughter's coming-of-age dress provided the perfect showcase for the spirited sketches of one of the new designers we had signed. While my business in Europe progressed steadily, Ku Huai was busy showing the world his earth-shattering love with Lin Yoyu. He introduced her to the domestic social circle, held lavish parties for her, trying to mold her into a new socialite standard, spending heavily to craft her public image, attempting to package his ignorance as innocence. The turning point came at a crucial business dinner hosted by Ku Corporation. Ku Huai hoped to secure a strategic partnership with the German manufacturing giant von Krupp family, so he specially invited the wife of the family's head, a lady known for her rigor and love of classical art. At the banquet, Lin Yoyu, perhaps trying to show how distinctive she was, pointed at an expensive abstract painting hanging in the hall and loudly said, "I could paint this kind of messy stuff myself. I really don't understand why it's so expensive." That very painting happened to be by the contemporary artist the von Krupp matron admired most. I later heard the details from Su Tong. The von Krupp woman's expression changed on the spot, while Ku Huai merely took it as Lin Yoyu's naive charm, smiling to smooth things over and even chiming in, "Yoyu is right," convinced his favor could settle everything. How wrong he was. The next day, the Krupp family unilaterally announced the termination of all cooperative negotiations with the Ku family. The price of Ku Huai's lovesick folly was that the Ku Group missed the best springboard to enter the European market, and its stock price plunged accordingly. I seized the opportunity. In my own name, I presented a visiting card to Mrs. Krupp, along with an appreciation essay I had personally written about that abstract artist's early stylistic evolution. 3 days later, I was invited to the Krupp family's castle as a guest. I did not mention business cooperation once. I spent the day speaking with the lady about the art collection of which she was so proud. When I left, I had obtained the strategic cooperation letter Ku Huai had been dreaming of. When the news reached home, Ku Huai was furious. He probably never imagined that I, whom he had treated like a disposable thing, would intercept things in this way. Humiliated and enraged, he began to use the Ku family's connections to blockade me commercially, cutting off several of my important raw material suppliers. This counterattack was expected. I did not panic for a moment. Instead, I turned and formed an alliance with the Ku family's biggest domestic rival, the Lu Group. I opened some channels of the European market to them on the condition that they give my brand top priority in raw materials and production lines. Immediately after, through my media friends in Europe, I discreetly leaked a story framing the breakdown of the Ku Group's cooperation with the Krupp family as a scandal caused by a femme fatale, leading to chaotic corporate management. I fed this precisely to several domestic financial outlets that thrive on rumor and sensationalism. A public outcry over the scandal, that major business decisions were ruined by nepotistic relations, became one among the final straws, triggering another round of precipitous drops in their stock price. While everyone was busy selling off Ku shares, I quietly purchased large quantities of the cheap circulating stock on the secondary market through a shell investment company registered in the Cayman Islands. The prey was not limited to the Kus domestically. My half-brother Shen Yi, on whom my father had pinned great hopes, was mediocre but impatient for success. With my mother's covert instigation and deliberate misdirection, he consecutively botched several major investment projects of the Shun Group. Shun's performance plummeted, and what had once been a solid business empire was now tottering. I concurrently bought Shun Group shares at low prices. Time is the best catalyst. 2 years later, the brand I founded, Aura, had become an international first-tier name with unshakable authority in haute couture. Under my series of blows, competitors' encroachments, and ongoing internal chaos, the Ku Group had long since become insolvent and was on the brink of bankruptcy. The Shun Group's days were equally grim. Dragged down by Shen Yi, it was reduced to a shell. The once lofty golden child finally bowed his proud head and, contrite, took the initiative to ask to meet me. The meeting was at a restaurant we used to frequent 2 years apart. Had worn away the spirited sharpness he once had. The bruises and slightly disheveled hair at his temples revealed an unmistakable weariness. He no longer carried his former overbearing air. His words were earnest to the point of humility. "Han Yang, I was wrong." He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. It was only in the past 2 years that I realized those fleeting moments of innocence are utterly helpless in the face of reality. He only causes me trouble. Aside from crying and acting spoiled, he can do nothing. The only person who could truly stand beside me and shoulder things with me is you. I was blind back then when I pushed you away. He said this, took a velvet box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a huge diamond ring. Hanyang, can we start over? Marry me. Together we can surely revive the Koo family business. He thought that my 2 years of enduring hardship and plotting had been solely to prove to him that I was better than Lin Yuyu, to win his heart back. How laughable. A few days later my father and Shunyi came to see me in my office. They were both dejected, one sighing, the other downcast, lamenting Jiayakou's difficulties and listing the company's rotten accounts in detail. Finally, my father looked at me and, in a gentleness I had never heard from him before, said, Hanyang, in the past Dad was wrong. Given the family's current situation, only you can save us. Come back, I'll give you the CEO position. If you're willing to act, you can clean up the mess that is the Shun firm. Shunyi agreed from the side, his face full of unwillingness but forced humility. Sister, I was immature before, don't hold it against me. I looked at their faces, each servile and calculating, and felt no ripple of emotion, even finding it a bit tedious, but I still smiled and pretended to agree to their request. The joint restructuring meeting was set for the circular conference room on the top floor of Koo Group. When I arrived, everyone was already there. Koo Huai sat in the main chair's left, suit crisp, but irritation showed in his brows. My father and Shunyi sat opposite him. My mother sat alone along one side of the long table, poised and unreadable. He and I exchanged a glance, then he quickly looked away. With everyone present, I walked to the main seat. Behind me a huge floor-to-ceiling window cast my shadow across the table, overshadowing everyone there. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice not loud but sufficient to quiet the room. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend this joint restructuring meeting between Koo Group and Shun Group. The large screen behind me lit up, clearly displaying the shareholding structure and asset report of a European company named Aura. Most people present recognized the name, a luxury brand that had risen to prominence in Europe over the past 2 years. Known for precise investment insight and ruthless business tactics, what they didn't know was who actually controlled that company. My lawyer stepped forward and used a laser pointer to indicate a debt-holding agreement on the screen. As of last quarter, Aura and its affiliated investment companies had, through the secondary market and debt transfers, acquired 53% of Koo Group's maturing debt, becoming Koo Group's largest creditor. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Koo Huai's composed expression immediately froze. He looked up at me sharply, his eyes full of shock and doubt. The lawyer did not pause and turned to the next slide, showing Shun Group's share distribution. At the same time, through several offshore funds, we had cumulatively acquired 38% of Shun Group's outstanding shares, and with the 15% transferred by MS Li Wenying, the total reached 53%, enabling absolute control of Shun Group. This time, even my father couldn't sit still. He steadied himself on the table, stood up, and looked at me in disbelief, then at my mother. While my mother gave me a slight nod, everything was part of our secret agreement. I scanned the room, looking at those who had once stood above everyone else but now wore various expressions, and announced the final decision in a steady voice. So, today's meeting was not a negotiation but a notification. I would, with Aura as the main body, acquire and merge Kosha and Shunsha. When the words fell, there was a dead silence. Koo Huai's face lost all color in a matter of seconds. He stared at me as if trying to find a trace of a joke on my face, but he failed, meeting his gaze. I walked step by step to stand in front of him, took out the ring he had once used to propose to me from my pocket. The platinum band flashed a cold light on my fingertips. I gently tossed it up and caught it steadily. The chill of the metal touched my palm, his Adam's apple bobbed. He seemed to want to say something but couldn't make a sound. Mr. Koo, you misunderstood one thing. I bent down, leaned close to his ear, and in a voice only we could hear said, I'm never interested in stealing men, I'm only interested in stealing men's paychecks. After speaking, I released the ring. It traced a small parabolic arc and landed precisely in the antique porcelain teacup in front of him with a crisp clink. Water splashed and ripples spread. In the end, the restructuring plan passed without suspense in the face of absolute capital advantage. The core assets of the Koo Group were split and merged into the new group at a very low price. While the remaining non-performing assets and massive debts were left to Ku Huai himself, he was completely bankrupt, falling overnight from a favored son of heaven to the biggest joke in the circle. I heard that Lin Yuyu moved out of their villa the day after his bankruptcy. He soon found a new target, another wealthy heir. He complained to others that Kuan had tricked him. He said he too was a victim. His naive fragility, which he had depended on to survive, looked cheap and ridiculous once the shelter of money was gone. As for Shin Jiasin, the first thing the group did after its establishment was announce an organizational restructuring. The first layoff notice I signed was for him. The reason given was insufficient capability, errors in judgment in past investment projects that caused the company irrecoverable huge losses. My father watched from the office window as security escorted him out of the company building. As for my dad, he received a new appointment letter. Lifelong honorary advisor to the new group, a title with no real power, not even requiring him to clock in at the company. His life's work, the business empire he once intended to pass to his son, was now entirely in my hands. He had no choice but to accept it. And my mother, honoring our agreement, I gave him a seat on the new group's board and a generously ample annual dividend. That day, after signing all the papers, she and I stood together at the office floor-to-ceiling window. There was no embrace between us. No tender conversation. He just stared at the bustling traffic outside for a long time before quietly saying, "It seems you did better than me." I looked at the blurred reflection of the two of us, mother and daughter, on the glass and replied calmly, "You were the best teacher." Our relationship changed from a pair of failed mother and daughter into a pair of successful business partners. Perhaps that was the best ending for us. Night fell, and I sat alone in the president's office. Beneath me the city's myriad lights, dazzling like a river of stars. They once thought perfection was my greatest failure. The always proper, always precise, never wrong Shen Hanyang was a dull, soulless, exquisite creation, but they did not know that this perfect work, crafted with all its might to please them, once it broke free of its constraints and chose to live for itself, would become their deadliest nightmare. The end.